is looking at the focus of personalisation, which obviously has been a focus of the first morning session, but this is looking at it in relation to technology. How technology is used in our adult social care, but whilst retaining the focus of personalisation, was a very kind of key central part of that. In terms of the technology, I know there's been a few technical issues this morning, but I hope you find that you're able to hear everything okay. Please use Slido to ask any questions, and please ensure that you are involved and make this session as interactive as possible. Many thanks. I'm going to hand over now to Adam and to Chris to lead this morning's workshop.
Thank you very much, Alison. So good morning. Yes, my name is Chris Duck and I'm the Managing Director for Social Care in the admin business. I'd like to thank ADASS for organising this event and giving us the opportunity to speak and be here and present, and to thank you all for attending and listening to us. I'm also joined, as Alison mentioned, by Andy Perrins from YPO, who we've worked in partnership with for a number of years now. And so today, here to talk about personalisation and how technology that's so often seen as a barrier to human contact, personalisation, can in fact be an enabler and can really help deliver the personalisation agenda. Please send questions through as we go through. We'll collate them and I'll try and answer as many as I can as we go, but if not, I'll answer them at the end if they're more generic questions. So just a little bit about Adam for anyone who isn't familiar with us. Very quickly, we provide digital social care solutions to local authorities and NHS organisations across the UK, helping customers with commissioning and management of care and support packages. We work with over 50 organisations and around 5,000 providers. And to date, we've helped and supported over 90,000 people across the country find some kind of care package. So managing around £1 billion of public sector spend. But the key for us is putting each individual at the heart of the process. So really using a technology that can handle sort of looking for care for individuals. So that's a very sort of quick, high-level background to who Adam are and who we've worked with in the past. But so obviously, yeah, here today to talk about personalisation and what is personalisation? Something that's caused a lot of debate over a number of years now. The Social Care Institute of Excellence defines personalisation as ensuring people with care and support needs can lead the lives they want, and that social care services work with people as partners to make this happen, which seems absolutely right. But I think that can mean a range of different things to a lot of different people. By definition, personalisation is unique to an individual. So some of the key elements we've talked to a number of customers about are sort of how personalisation can be defined in practice. And so greater choice is something that's often combined or sometimes confused with personalisation. Greater choice is an element of it, absolutely. But greater choice doesn't necessarily deliver personalisation in its entirety. A person can be given a choice of 50 providers, but if none of them necessarily can deliver a package that's bespoke to that individual, it doesn't necessarily meet a personalised agenda. We've worked with councils who are working very closely with groups of people in helping them to define bespoke care packages and defining the unique needs of individuals. So actually sourcing care that is unique to a person's needs or even outcomes could be an element of personalisation, and focusing on outcomes rather than time and task perhaps is something that makes up the personalisation definition. And we've also worked with a range of organisations in both health and social care, looking at how we can empower people to define their own needs, to help find and manage their own care, to help independents through direct payments, through PHBs, personal health budgets. And crucially, and an element that we find is often omitted in this kind of process, is the capturing of feedback, capturing of meaningful feedback from individuals in receipt of care or their family members or even their carers or providers on how the care is being delivered, the changes, whether there is a need to evolve and adapt the type of care or services that are being delivered, and how that data can be used in a more strategic way potentially. So just looking at personalisation, we've done a lot of work with some of our partners, both Council and NHS, in looking at what personalisation actually means and how we can try and assist through the use of different types of technology in delivering it. And so moving on to the technology landscape, there are huge amounts of different systems and pieces of technology out there, operating in a whole range of different ways. And I've just sort of listed out a number of different types of tech that councils, people, providers are using. But often we found when we're working and implementing technology into councils, they are focused on handling administration and processes, and so are not necessarily putting the person at the centre of the process, not necessarily aimed at driving personalisation in itself. They're targeted more on, as I say, dealing with actually how the process works. I think, Andy, I know you've got some experience in this.
Yeah, I think over the years, I've seen all sorts of different approaches to personalisation, and it seems to me some of the difficulties is a lot of this different types of technology doesn't always connect the processes together, which stifles projects often and doesn't achieve the desired outcomes.
Great, thank you. Can we go back to the slides, please? Thank you. So we've looked at what the challenges are and barriers, I suppose, are to embracing technology to deliver personalisation and to deliver a more personal type of care for individuals. And there's a range of different challenges we've come across. I don't think these are necessarily uniform across organisations, but tend to be themes that we've encountered. Cost is a key one, obviously. Technology inevitably costs money, there's an investment to make. However, there's a huge pressure on cost cutting, particularly at the moment, and on a very short-term, immediate ROI, which often means that looking at longer-term, potentially more innovative, potentially slightly potentially riskier projects are shelved in favour of immediate results. And so cost becomes an immediate barrier if there's no immediate ROI that can be evident. Potentially, some technology, particularly when we're looking at personalisation and how to engage individuals in the process more, may not deliver an ROI for a much longer period of time and sometimes several years, because actually it's looking at actually reducing demand or looking at changing the type of provision that is available in a certain area. So cost, inevitably, as it always is a key barrier, I think, to the uptake of technology. I think we've also found that, as I indicated in the previous slide, the range and number of different systems and technologies that are in place can often lead to conflict. And often having multiple systems or multiple technologies in place, or trying to operate multiple systems or technologies at the same time, can lead to actually increased bureaucracy or more difficult process or confusion. And so I think the key here is we'll talk about this in a second, but looking at how those can be integrated. We've also seen pilots been put in place, but without fully embracing a process and fully embracing a technology, not the individual systems don't necessarily realise their full value. I think probably one of the key issues we see, particularly in technology, is resistance to change and the need for mindset change. There seems to be a huge fear of systems, technology in general, and I think that's exacerbated in the care environment. And it's a paradox when we use technology so much in our daily lives to book holidays, to online banking, to check in with friends or far-flung relatives, And particularly in the sort of over the last few months with lockdown, with the COVID-19, technology's been, there's been a massive boom of it in terms of uptake of usage. And so there is a big paradox between how technology is used in I think our everyday lives and how it's seen in social care or in the care market. It seems that tech is seen as a barrier to human contact and to personalization. For example, there's a perception that people with learning difficulties don't own smart devices, when actually national statistics say over 70% do and use them very regularly. And so actually overcoming that resistance to change and putting technology in a context where it can actually be an enabler is crucial to its success, I think. And I suppose linked to that is bureaucracy and the need to change, the need to change process. So we've seen technology being seen as an easy fix potentially and thrown into organizations without necessarily going through a change management process, or without necessarily there being a willingness to change the actual processes in place, and then expecting the technology to work. And so I think tech systems can only work when they're allied with service delivery and when they're worked into the core operating model of an organization. And even within our business, we've seen that where technologies have been put in place without necessarily going through the proper thought process and implementation, and they've not worked anywhere near as well as they might. So I think we find that technology implemented over an outdated process is likely to only add limited value or potentially fail. Again, Andy, I think you had a couple of points to make on this.
Yeah, I've worked in a couple of councils, and good examples are around home care commissioning. And actually, there was a desire to change, but actually, the way that the project was organised, the project leads hadn't necessarily involved the right people, such as finance or payment teams, contracting and procurement teams from the very outset. So the whole redesign was confused, and it resulted in really significant delays around the payments and quality arrangements and procurement approaches. And I think, when you're bringing something in so significant, getting those teams on board at the outset is absolutely critical. Otherwise, the whole personalisation agenda and driving change through is a problem.
Yeah. And so moving on to how we can improve personalisation across the care market. Well, I think by better connecting individuals and providers or people who can deliver care and support or equipment or technology itself, even in terms of prevention technology, etc. And so I think that's a huge way to begin to look at how people can become empowered and promote independence. But I think, again, there's a perception potentially or an argument that the kind of people who receive care and support may not be comfortable using technology, may not be willing to, may not be able to in places. And I think that is more and more becoming, or being disproved, I suppose, that is actually the case. We know that amongst elderly people, there is a vast uptake of technology. And again, I think the recent COVID pandemic has only accelerated the uptake of technology. So the time seems absolutely perfect to look at how we can engage the individuals, the recipients of care services, far more in the process. There have been a lot of studies, and there's a swell of opinion out there that local authorities potentially could start to become much more facilitators and signposters and place more responsibility in the hands of the individual. And inevitably, to do that and to be able to maintain the responsibilities of local authority, technology is crucial to be able to understand and monitor everything. So I think there is a way to help people and their families understand what's available, what access to services, equipment, technology they have and need. And so I suppose, what does that look like in practice in terms of what do we need to do as community to be able to improve personalization and use technology to do it? Well, I suppose first and foremost is actually embracing change. So there's a whole raft of different stakeholders involved in this, inevitably. Councils, providers, individuals, volunteers, community groups, etc. And I suppose we want to look at how we can actually promote change as a positive and look at how technology can be seen as an enabler. We've worked with a number of councils who have implemented a variety of different types of systems in a variety of different ways, and where it's worked best is where there has been a change management process that accompanies any implementation of any technology, where there's been a real sort of education and information effort to be able to go, rather than just putting a technology in place and telling people to use it, to really educate why it is in place, what the value is. And essentially, I suppose, going back to some of the challenges, weaving a tech into the core processes. And looking at long-term savings, I think budgets and term savings can often be very controversial or divisive term in social care or care in general. And I suppose savings aren't at all about taking funding out of social care, but it's about making resources go further. It's about using a combination of technology that works together. It's about integrating a whole range of organizations or departments rather than necessarily working in silos, so that the benefits can be realized over a long and sustainable period of time, rather than potentially trying a certain piece of technology and moving to a different one, or trying different pilots. I think it's looking at a much more holistic strategy for how saving can be realized. We've worked with a number of organizations across both health and social care who have come together to use a piece of technology to look at how data and information from a variety of different sources can be shared and can be pooled, so that systems can be shared, data can be shared, resources shared, and that's actually worked really quite well across a large regional area. And then looking at the wider community as well, I think engaging with the non-traditional forms of social care provider can be challenging, can be time-consuming, because it's very disparate and it's hard to do manually effectively. And so again, some kind of tech is required. We again have looked at councils and talked to councils who have used a range of different technologies to engage with and to offer different types of community-based services to individuals, to look at alternative to the traditional home support or even residential care types of services, and engaging a much wider community, but again, pulling it together in a single place is crucial to how successful I think a technology or a series of technologies can be. And I suppose one of the key ones is actually empowering people. So giving individuals the opportunity and indeed the tools to be able to understand what's available, to be able to define their own need, to be able to see who and what might be able to provide them different types of services, different types of care. We are working with councils London boroughs, who are capturing feedback directly from providers and individuals into a technology which is visible immediately to both council and providers, so it can be acted on and reacted to very swiftly. And some have taken it further than this, to be able to give individuals access to their care packages, to be able to review and assess whether that package needs and be able to comment on it. And I suppose the next step of that is to push the actual finding and sourcing and management of care packages out to individuals. And clearly technology is required to be able to keep control of that. And I suppose that comes down to the final point on here, which is the use of data. So essentially bringing it all together, capturing all of the information about an entire community, about an entire marketplace in a single set of data, gives local authorities or other organisations the ability to view exactly what's going on, regardless of care type or funding type or anything else, which can allow for, I suppose, more strategic, longer-term decision making. And the integration of different technologies, I think, here is absolutely crucial. So there is no one set of data, there's no one system or one tech that's necessarily going to be able to pull together all of the different activity that's going on in a care environment. And so looking at that whole ecosystem holistically and being able to pull data and integrate systems together is absolutely vital to being able to get the most out of all the different technologies available. Andy, did you want to just come in there?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say that change is challenging within the health and social care environment, especially when systems and processes don't always work together to enable it. And I think this is some evidence here. By working with a really experienced provider to support the change, the journey and the outcomes can be far easier. And I know, Chris, that you've plenty of evidence of that happening in several areas, and really moving to do things in very different ways, far from the traditional.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to sum up then, I suppose really to summarise what I think we can achieve through the use of technology and using technology to embrace personalisation, I suppose, before we move on to some time for questions. I think inevitably better care and well-being for individuals. It's about benefiting all parties, but the individual is absolutely the centre of this. But giving organisations, councils, health, etc., the ability to have enhanced decision making, enabling staff to be able to spend more time with people rather than doing admin and bureaucratic tasks, I think can then drive genuine savings that are longer term savings rather than short, sharp, sort of immediate term ROIs, and inevitably giving more accurate data to enable that strategic decision making across the entire care system.